the two parties, once populism was dead, they enacted all kinds of reforms to make sure that they never faced this kind of challenge again. Reforms,
Right.
you know, one of the things that they did, this has been undone, of course, but one of the things they did in the South is they disenfranchised blacks. You know, this is the famous. This is when disenfranchisement happened. Was once they had suppressed populism, they went and took the vote away from a huge part of the population in the South. Also, a lot of poor whites lost the vote at the same time. And that's of course been undone, you know, so
Sort
in
of.
the
And then-
1960s.
and
Yeah,
then
I mean,
redone.
but there's always all these. But then they did a lot of other things to make sure that populism never came back. They made fusion voting illegal. I think that's still illegal. All kinds of things like this.
What's fusion voting?
So one of the things, the strategies that the populists would use, so that, you know, when you have three parties contesting and they're all about the same size, what happens is that the two smaller parties will gang up on the bigger one. So in Kansas, for example, the populists and the Republicans were about the same size. And then there was this rump Democratic Party that's very small. And the populists lined up, they got these Democrats, they would give them something or another, and the Democrats would vote for the populists. And in this way, they would win the elections. And in the South, in North Carolina, you had the same thing, but with the Republican Party. So the Democrats were the dominant. These are the racist Democrats, the bourbon Democrats were the dominant power then, and the populists ganged up with the Republicans, who were the traditional party of the black voters in the South at the time. And in this way, they overcame the Democrats and won.
No.
Okay,
Like
so
the
that's
kind of
that's
ranked
illegal
choice
now.
voting.
That you can't do that now.
Right.
There's no good reason for that to be illegal. It just is.
Well, it's the same reason that both parties are very opposed to ranked choice voting and any other kind of system that could
Right,
break us out of
exactly.
the
See,
duopoly.
they've got a duopoly. They've got a really nice thing going, and the whole thing is about if they can maintain control over their own organizations and keep, you know, like the Sanders challenge out, you know, keep that suppressed, keep that down, then everything works for them, you know, and they can deliver whatever they feel like delivering, and it's fine. It's a really, really sweet little political system for them. I was going to say, I used to say before the events of today that I used to say something nice about Donald Trump, which is that he shows us how you can disrupt one of the major parties. You know, I really liked what he did to Jeb Bush in 2016. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, what's your insight on what that magic was? Because we all heard after 2016 that the reason that Donald Trump won, liberal logic went, is because he did explicit racism. America's racist, and racists just voted for Donald Trump. And the appeal, the arguable populist appeal, was largely written out of the narrative. And folks who tried to nod to it or speak to other factors in addition to racism, not denying that, of course, Donald Trump is a racist, were kind of told that they were excusing racism or justifying racism or trying to somehow cover up for what was really core or exclusive to Donald Trump's appeal.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, I think that's, well, first of all, Trump is a bigot. And Trump did get the bigot vote. There's absolutely no question in my mind.
But here's the thing: we've had bigots for a long time.
I know,
right?
exactly. And that's not the magic key to winning an election in America. If it was, you know, like George Wallace would still be president. You know?
Right.
That is not the or Richard Nixon. I mean, we've had a lot of assholes. We've had a lot of racist assholes in this country. I don't think that's the magic element of Trumpism. I think there's a lot of different elements to it. But one of them is, it is certainly what he was saying about trade agreements, because there was this sort of two-party consensus on that. And meanwhile, you know, there's all of these people, you know, either know to be true or believe to be true that the trade agreements were responsible for deindustrializing their part of the world, and I happen to sympathize with those people. I mean, I agree with those people, in other words. And Trump really spoke to that. If you go back and look at his speeches, he talked about it all the time. And there are other things. The opioids. He was very effective at talking about the opioid epidemic. Now, as president, he did jack shit to help those people.
Right.
You know, I mean, this is a guy who you know, this is a guy that what's his two great achievements: the Paul Ryan tax cut and deregulating polluters.
Yeah.
What an asshole! And now like staging a fascist coup attempt in Washington. I just can't believe what is going on. The guy's a total monster. But if you go back and look at why he prevailed, now I have different ideas about why he did as well as he did against Joe Biden. I mean, we're in such a screwed up time now. But I'll wait for you to ask me about that.
Well, so why did he do so good against Joe Biden?
Okay, first I want to give you my theory of 2020.
Sure.
Please.
Which is that you remember this in the Roman religion, in the sort of pagan Roman religion, that the idea was that one of the ideas was that the gods were always fucking with us. They were always playing with us. They were, and I swear that's what 2020 was. It's like having Biden defeat Sanders right before the pandemic started. What the fuck?
Yeah.
On and on and on. And this idiot president, who doing nothing about the epidemic or very, very, very little. It all drives me crazy. And the big question that people will be debating for a long time to come is why was he so successful as he was in 2020? And, you can say, well, the economy was doing really well right up until the pandemic. And I think that's probably part of it. But I also think a huge part of it is that liberalism made itself incredibly distasteful in the intervening years. And I mean, you know what I'm talking about, this sort of constant hysterical, the sort of mainstream liberalism that we all it's sort of culturally hegemonic, it's culturally dominant, it's a sort of coming together of the elites in all sorts of different ways, and it has made itself extremely distasteful. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, some people frame this as you talk too much about the culture wars, and you got to speak.
What else do we got?
Well, that's the thing. Liberalism is a cultural. It has a cultural hegemony, but it's not hegemonic anywhere else. And because of that, your average person just gets it in their face at all times, and then perceives that those are the elites, those are the people, those are the gray eminences who actually control things behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Because I see it in every damn movie.
And my feeling is that you don't actually need the trade-off, right? There are some on the left who say, Bernie talked too much about, marginalized groups, and you should just not talk about trans people. But I don't think that those are mutually exclusive. I think that if you just talk more about trade, you keep talking about corruption, and you keep talking about all those things, then you have a balanced kind of messaging, and suddenly those cultural issues aren't ranked number one in the minds of voters who might not have direct investment in them.
Can I also just say I object to that I object to the factual basis for that. I've seen enough Bernie speeches, enough Bernie campaign ads to say that no, he was not fighting a culture war campaign. He stuck to a handful of sharp messages that were primarily materialistic, that were primarily economic.
I agree. If anything, when he goes in those the kind of spiel he does at the beginning of every speech and says Black, white, Asian, Native American, and I always hold my breath hoping he doesn't actually accidentally leave one off. He never leaves one off. It reminded me of when you were writing about the 1890s populists, Tom, in the book.
Wait, Brianna, let's hold on to that thought, because I want to just say here, I don't think it's the cultural I think that, look, I'm very liberal. You know that. I think that the Democrats are basically in the right on the culture wars. It's the way that they do it. It's the liberalism of scolding, which I just absolutely can't stand. And this is all around us all the time. This kind of liberalism that constantly approaches the mass of the population of ordinary Americans as people to be shamed and scolded and corrected. And we do it constantly. I mean, Twitter is the perfect example, but there are hundreds and hundreds of examples. Liberalism has become a philosophy. Did you see the New York Times today? I mean, before this nutty bullshit down at the Capitol building began, I was reading the New York Times today, and there's a story by Tom Edsall about all of these law professors who are in favor of some kind of censorship regime.
Yeah.
Well, the public knows that because liberals hint at it all the time, and liberals are in favor of it. What kind of liberal does this? What kind of liberal goes to Facebook and says, "We want you to crack down on such and such variety of political speech"? That's like I don't care where you are. If you're an American, you're going to be disgusted by that. And this is if that's, and by the way, Biden never says stuff like this, to his credit. Biden is not that kind of liberal.
I do think that Joe Biden will often support the illiberal thing while not talking about it very much. Like he skipped all of the kind of like affinity group meetings over the course of the campaign. Like he just didn't go to the human rights event. He just didn't go to She the People, a Black event. Like he just doesn't go to the stuff. So he never gets caught up in the things. Yeah. But then behind the scenes, he'll, be an anti-free speech kind of a candidate that like really favors all of these tech enterprises. You have Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, general counsel at Uber, having this proximity to the campaign and all of these conflicts of interest. But he is able to signal and message himself and present himself as more of a populist than anybody else in the race other than...
Absolutely. And he comes across as a regular guy, as a friend of, middle-class Joe, rides on the Amtrak, et cetera. But look, I bring it up because you guys, you know what I'm talking about because you've been on the receiving end of it many times, and that is the sort of liberalism of scolding. And I'm here in Bethesda, Maryland, and it speaks to you from every yard sign. Have you seen those yard signs? Respect science.
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus Christ.
But it's respect authority. And this is, look, it's no coincidence that the Democratic Party, at the very same time it takes this scolding attitude, this constant attitude of shaming people and silencing people, that it is at the same time becoming dominant with all of these different sort of economic groups. One more anecdote, and then Brianna, we'll get back to what you were saying. I come from Johnson County, Kansas. I mentioned that at the start of the program. Johnson County is sort of the white flight suburbs of Kansas City, Missouri. When I was a kid, it's by far the most affluent county in the state of Kansas. When I was a kid, I thought it was the most Republican place in America. And it arguably was. I mean, Republicans controlled every office. Republicans won every election. I looked it up recently. The last time it went for a Democrat was in the year 1916 when it went for Woodrow Wilson. That's before it was an urbanized place. It was just farm country back then. Well, it went for Biden. And I looked up the results in the richest part of Johnson County. I mean, this is like, the Kansas City equivalent of billionaires. He won every precinct. So at the same time that the Democratic Party is becoming this party of the very affluent, of a certain set of very affluent people, it's becoming a party of scolding and shaming. Folks, this is a recipe for disaster. Yeah, this is exactly anti-populism. This is 1896 all over again, and 1936 all over again. It is. I mean, yes, Biden won this time, but this cannot go on. I mean, maybe it can because Republicans are such incredible fucking morons.
Well, they figured a couple of things out. We liberals, we love, this is more of our scolding, right? We love to talk about how stupid they are, and figured a couple of things
I'm sorry, isn't that funny? I just scolded them myself. After saying all that, I just scolded them myself.